in certain schools of yoga, they classify yogis into three categories. These are referred to as Mandha, Madhyama and Uttama. Mandha means he has tasted what it means to be conscious. He has tasted the source of creation, he has known the oneness, but not able to keep it throughout the day. He needs to remind himself. When he reminds himself, when he's aware, he's there. When he is not aware, he loses that whole experience. Nobody can be effortfully conscious for 24 hours. If you're making an effort to be conscious, if you can manage it for a few seconds or minutes, it's a big thing. Otherwise it'll go all over the place. So the first stage of a yogi is called Mandha. The second stage of the yogi is called Madhyama, that means medium. He is constantly in perception, but the inner dimension and what's beyond is in perception, but what is here, he cannot manage. You have… being in India, definitely you have heard of various yogis who were worshipped, but they were absolutely incapable of anything in their life. Many of them at a certain phases of their life, they even had to be reminded to eat and go to the toilet. Even that had to be taken care of. They became like helpless infants. But they were in a fantastic state within themselves. But however fantastic it is, you cannot remain in that state because being disconnected from the physical world, you cannot remain in the physical body. If you have to maintain your physical body, you must have some competence with the physical world, otherwise you cannot manage it. The third state of a yogi is constantly in perception of the ultimate. At the same time, he is perfectly in tune with the outside. To an extent, you do not know whether he is really a yogi or not. Dattatreya, you heard of Dattatreya? Dattatreya? Oh, that's some good news. Because Matsyendranath and Dattatreya have been held as the greatest yogis in the tradition among all a galaxy of realized beings. These two have been held as the greatest among them. Matsyendranath, because of the way he existed, people consider him as the reincarnation of Shiva. With Dattatreya, people around him said he is the reincarnation of Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma at once. This is people's way of expressing it. When they saw something about that person, though he's in the human form, nothing human at all, this doesn't mean he's inhuman. Yes, definitely not human. So when they saw such qualities, they could only compare him to Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma like this. They said he is the reincarnation of all the three. So sometimes you will see Dattatraya's images with 3 heads because he is the reincarnation of all the 3. Dattatreya lived a very enigmatic life. Even today, the clan which grew out of him, they follow certain things, a powerful clan. You might have… definitely you've heard of Kanfats. These are the worshippers of Dattatreya. Even today they walk around with black dogs. Dattatreya always had black dogs around him, spotlessly black. But I will not go into this dog business. There's a whole lot of things about it. He used dog in a certain way. You know, if you have a dog at home, he's little more perceptive than you. Yes or no? In smell, in hearing, in vision, he seems to be little better than you. So Dattatreya took the dog to a different level and he chose those dogs which were completely jet black. Even today, the Kanfats have these dogs with them. They won't let their dogs walk, they will carry them on their shoulders and walk, big dogs. Because it was Dattatreya's pet, so they treat him very special. After 200 generations, still what he set up still runs. Still it's one of the largest clans of spiritual seekers. When Parashurama, the axe hacker, anything that he saw, he hacked up with his axe, including his mother. A man of very volatile emotions. In many ways, without participating in it, Parashuram decided the fate of Kurukshetra war. He fixed Karna in the very beginning. He had enormous capabilities, but his emotional volatility did not allow him to perceive the divine every moment of his life, off and on, off and on. Bad weather most of the time. So he went to many gurus or teachers. When he found they did not have what he's looking for, he hacked them. Yes. And then he came towards Dattatreya. People told him, Dattatreya is your answer. He came, still with his axe. When he was coming towards Dattatreya's place, many other spiritual seekers had gathered. They looked into his ashram and were running away. This is not a spiritual place. When Parashuram walked in to Dattatreya's abode, he looked. Here was a man who was sitting with a pot, a jug of wine on one lap and a young woman on his other lap. He just looked. Dattatreya looked drunk. Parashuram looked at him, put his axe down for the last time and prostrated himself. Everybody else left. The moment he prostrated, the jug of wine and the woman disappeared, and Dattatreya was just sitting there with his dog at his feet. Parashuram found his salvation to Dattatreya. This is a demo for Parashurama because he's a man of immense capabilities, but this capability is finding expression in anger, finding expression in a state of emotional volatility that it always finds negative expression, tremendous power, finding negative expression. So Dattatreya employed a certain ploy, and when Parashurama could see beyond the wine and the woman and his drunkenness and still know that Dattatreya was constantly in touch with the divine, that moment became his opening. If he was that perceptive right through his life, a lot of people would have been spared the axe. You heard of Ashtavakra? Ashtavakra means 8 types of deformities he had in his body. He was born this way because he was cursed by his own father when he was in his mother's womb. His father was also a very famous sage and a great scholar, acquired many things, we don't know how many lifetimes. When the wife is pregnant, it's part of the culture that when a woman is pregnant, she must hear all the scriptures and all the good things and knowledge because she should not hear wrong things, negative things. She should hear nice, pleasant music, she must hear good things, people read Bhagavad Gita to her, Vedas to her. Whether she understands or not, it doesn't matter. The child will listen. Slowly, its evolution will be affected by what the child listens to. So, as a part of it, the father was saying something, explaining something about a scripture. Then suddenly they heard a voice disagreeing with what the father was saying. The child from within the womb said, "No, that's not it, you didn't get it right." The father got so incensed by this, an unborn son already negating him. It should happen after he's 18 years of age. An unborn one already saying you're wrong. It happens when they come to teenage. He got so incensed and cursed him that let him have 8 types of deformities. So he was born almost an inhuman form, twisted out body. So he was named as Ashtavakra, 8 types of deformities. Father was he was in the king's court, in King Janaka's court, as a scholar, a very accomplished scholar. King Janaka has such a thirst to know. He wants to become enlightened. So he gathered all kinds of sages and scholars and the works, anybody he could get anywhere, he brought them into his court and he wanted to listen to their teachings. And he himself became an accomplished yogi over a period of time, but he still not realized. Then one day, Ashtavakra's father took this little boy to the court. When the king, Janaka, saw Ashtavakra, Ashtavakra held the king's eyes. When the king looks at you, you're supposed to look down, which all the scholars and everybody do. But this boy just looked at him straight. So Janaka was little taken back. Such a distorted body, he almost has not even a human-looking body. But the boy's eyes were such, he just stared at the king and said, "All these scholars who are sitting here, with all due respect to all of them, nobody, none of these people, including my father, will be able to give you what you're looking for." The king was flabbergasted, this 8 or 9-year-old boy saying this to him, and his father wanted to naskify him because this fellow has this habit of saying these things right from the beginning. Then Ashtavakra, at the age of 12 or 14, he left the family and went into the forest. One day King Janaka went hunting with his retinue of soldiers in the works. And in the heat of hunt, he got separated from the soldiers and he got lost in this forest. Then he found Ashtavakra sitting in the jungle. So King Janaka, sitting on his horse, looked at him and said, "You are here?" He said, "Yes." And Ashtavakra, in his own way, said, "And it's me who has drawn you here, from your people, away from all of them. If you're willing to just take instructions from me, I'll get you there, what you're looking for." So King Janaka wanted to ask, "Did you see any of my soldiers? Did you see any of the royal retinue around?" Because he wants to find them and go back home. So Ashtavakra asked, "What is more important for you? What you've been claiming all your life that you want, or you want to find your way home? Which way is it?" This hit the king so much. He said, "No, that's the only thing I want. I don't care whether I go back to the palace or not." And he wanted to get down from the horse. He took one leg off the stirrup and he was up, one leg here. Ashtavakra said, "Just stop. Stop right there." When he was just getting off the horse, he asked him to just stop there, stuck in an uncomfortable position on the horse like this, one leg up, one leg in the stirrup. He said, "Just stay there." This is the first act of Zen, okay? This is some 8,000 years ago. And Janaka realized in that uncomfortable position, he suddenly burst into enlightenment. He got down and bowed down to Ashtavakra and wanted to stay there. After a certain period of time, Ashtavakra said, "You go back to the palace." King Janaka said, "No way, the palace means nothing to me, I am not going back." So Ashtavakra said, "The question is not about whether you want to be a king or not. The people of this nation need an enlightened king, so you must go." So he sent him back. Namaskaram to everyone. Shankara, an intellectual giant, a genius of linguistics, above all, a spiritual light, pride of India. But we have special pride that he is from the south. A seamless sense of wisdom, knowledge, and a shining light for humanity. How do you produce such a man? Obviously, if someone has to show that level of wisdom at a very early age, in that brief span of life, he walked the length and breadth of this nation. We all came flying today, but he walked from the southern tip of India to here and further up and east and west. Where does this energy, where does this zest and where does this wisdom come from? Just to take one aspect, he comes from a village, today a small town called Kaladi. Kaladi literally means beneath the feet. This is the fundamental nature of this culture. Bharat means we always learnt how to be at the feet of the divine, to be Kaladi always. Not a culture of pumped up pomp, but a culture of natural piety. With this, just with this one aspect, we could produce great beings. This has been the tradition, this has been the culture of this nation, that not by being at the head, but being at the feet, we learned. By being at the feet, we evolved. By being at the feet, we blossomed. By being at the feet, we became shining lights to the rest of the world for a long time. It's once again time that we bring back this culture, we bring back this piety, we bring back this sense of humility
which has paid enormous dividend for this culture, that we learned how to bow down. Doesn't matter, it is a god or a man or a woman or a child or an animal or a tree or a rock, we learn to bow down to everything. This has been our strength, this has been our way, this has been the process and the method of our evolution and realization. This is very important today in the world, that all this knowledge, all this wisdom came not by faith, not by belief, but by realization. Well, 1,000 years ago, or well before Shankara, many have spoken, but the beauty of Shankara is the clarity, the intellectual clarity with which he expressed and the zest with which he spread it across the country. Many have said this before, right from the time of Adiyogi. Many yogis, many mystics, many sages, many saints have said this, but it is the absolute clarity of intellect and the zest and the energy to be able to bring it to a whole nation, which makes Shankara stand out. Well, there are many aspects to this, but today, one thing that is important in this world is, unless the spiritual process in some way, if it does not run parallel to the scientific realizations that have happened, and if spiritual process in some way does not sync with the fundamental human logic, the future will not take it. In this sense, Shankara's message is significant. This is the future. The future generations of this world will reject everything that will not make logical sense to them. The future generations of the world will reject everything that is not scientifically correct. So in this sense, Shankara becomes very significant. There's a lot of misunderstanding, let me clear at least one for him, I think we owe it to him. A lot of people go about saying, what is the nonsense he's talking? Because he said everything is Maya. So the way it is being interpreted is, Maya means it doesn't exist. Maya does not mean it does not exist. Maya means an illusion. Maya means you are not seeing it the way it is. You are seeing it in a way that is good for your survival, but you are not seeing it the way it is. Today modern physics is telling you the entire universe is just a network of the one same energy. When we say Maya, here we are with this body which seems to be solid, but every day, because of the food that you eat, the water that you drink and the air that you breathe, 7% of this body is being exchanged on a daily basis. That means in 2 weeks, your entire body is gone and you have something new in the system. The atomic substance in this body, nearly 100% of it is gone in 1 year's time. This means every year you have a completely new body in a very fundamental sense. But in your experience, it looks like it's the same thing. This is the Maya. Similarly with the rest of the existence, the way you're seeing it, the way you're perceiving it, the way you're knowing the world through 5 senses is completely off the mark. This is the illusion. When we say a mirage, if you're driving on the road in the highway, you will see far away there seems to be water. Well, when you go there, definitely there is no water. This does not mean there was nothing there. There was some radiation which created this illusion. So this is Maya. What is one thing seems to be another thing. This is the Maya he was talking about. What you think is me is actually everything. This is the Maya. What you think is the other is actually you. What you think is everything is nothing too. That is the Maya he's talking about. today modern science, after a long haul, has come parallel to what Shankara was talking and many sages of the past were talking. So this will be the future of this world. There's a very beautiful story in Mahabharata that all of you will know. I'm going back to Kaladi because we come from the south, we are at the feet of Bharat Mata. And it has paid off very beautifully for us in so many ways. You remember the story that every grandmother must have told you, that when Arjuna and Duryodhana went to seek support from Krishna for the Kurukshetra war, one stood at the head, the other chose to stand at the feet. That made everything. That decided. That afternoon, when Arjuna stood at the feet, he won the war. This is the significance of this nation, that by bowing down, we rise. We don't rise by elbowing our way, we rise because we bow down to everything. Because our essential nature is this, we are Kaladi. Shankara comes from the village called Kaladi. It is very, very symbolic and important. And now being in Madhya Pradesh, the heartland of India, well, Shivrajji is trying to turn this into the spiritual heartland because it's time. It is time the spiritual wisdom comes down from the mountains into the cities, into the towns, into the villages, above all, into the hearts and minds of people. Because this is going to be the greatest treasure, this is going to be the future of this nation, and because of… if we do this one thing, the entire world will seek guidance from this nation. It's very wonderful today that once again they have reignited the spirit of Shankara in this part of the country. I'm sure it will spread to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.